Patrick Semple, who's come all the way from Dublin, very kindly down. He's all I say, the former Church of Ireland clergyman. That's all you're asking to introduce you as, so I'm going to kind of allow you away with that, and I'm going to shimmy over here. Sit down and be quiet.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm delighted to come down and talk to you. You got word of my name, I understand, because I spoke to the Dublin Humanists on the 6th of January. And I suppose with a couple of, it's important when you watch television, you have to look at these commercials. So I'll start with my commercial, if you don't mind. And one of it is, just to say that I bought a few books of mine that were published last year, and they both have running through them a theme of atheism. So that's why I think they're apt to a group like this. And the other thing is I have a number on my website, patricksemple.ie, not .com, .ie. There was a recent article I wrote on atheism on my website as well. Just to tell you a bit about myself, I was born just within weeks of the outbreak of the Second World War in Wexford Town, and born into the little 5% or less Church of Ireland community in Wexford Town, because that's the national average of non-Roman Catholics in Ireland at that time. So from there I went to the little local Church of Ireland school, a single teacher school with 8 classes and 1 teacher in 1 room. From there I went to Dublin to boarding school when I was 11. And during that time my father died and I left school early. I left school after the inter. And as young men do at that stage, knocked around. I enjoyed life, played rugby and cricket. And of course that's not the holy all, but the holy all of it is what goes on the Saturday night after the games, which is the social life of drinking pints and finding parties, that kind of thing. After about 5 or 6, I was working in an insurance company. After about 5 or 6 years of that, I slowly, it began to dawn on me, there's something more to be done really to make sense of life for me than this. And so, very slow, I had been brought up in a very liberal Church of Ireland family. And I come to that later. I was not indoctrinated. And that's, I think, a very big issue, as I see it. But it was a traditional Church of Ireland family, and I had a very strong sense of vocation to ministry. In due course, I offered myself, and they said yes. But I had to work then. I was only an inter. I had to work to get a trick in Trinity to go through and do a degree and all that, which was required. I did that. And in the Divinity School in Trinity, I found myself all along the line asking questions. I remember well being in lectures, there were a dozen of us in the year roughly, and these lecturers would get up and they'd give out the stuff, and I have a dozen questions to ask. And nobody else seemed to be asking questions. I couldn't really understand that. And I stopped asking questions because I kind of felt when I did, from around me, oh God, there he goes again. That kind of thing. So anyway, I was ordained, I went ahead, I found it extremely interesting. But if there was, as they say, a prototype for all of us somewhere in the Gospels, there's unquestionably my prototype in the Gospels was Thomas. And so, but I was ordained and I went to a curacy in Belfast for 3 years. I was advised as a southerner that it was good to get experience in the Church of Ireland in the north. So I went to, and this was 1967. And I absolutely loved the work. I enjoyed the people, I enjoyed the pastoral thing, I enjoyed in particularly creating community, and through the liturgy creating community, and so on and so forth. And I enjoyed the work very much. And again, I had a lot of things going on in my head, but as one became involved in the busy parish life, things went to the back of my mind. But after 3 years, we were there for the last 6 months of the Troubles, which broke out in August. We left the following June, and I arranged to get some support to go to the University of Chicago Divinity School to give me time to read and to try and address some of these problems, questions. And so I did, and after a year there, I had more questions. And so I came back, and I was appointed to a parish in County Laois, Stradbally, famous then for its steam rally, but even more famous now, I believe, for electric picnic. And so that was the parish where I spent 11 years. And I became involved in adult education and enjoyed that very much. But during that time, that 11 years, and right through the time I was in the ministry, every now and again I get this thing, I really have to get out. And then it would pass. I remember when I was at Stradbally, I sent away for the syllabus for the human resources, the predecessor, the Personnel Management Institute, which was the predecessor of human resources. And because I thought that was something I could do if I qualified at that, well, I could leave and get a job to support a family, you see. Then it passed off, and I got involved in the parish and people and so on. And this went on, and then I was appointed as Church of Ireland Adult Education Officer at our theological college in Dublin. And that was a very interesting experience because at the Church of Ireland Theological College, Anglicanism is a very broad spectrum of belief, from conservative evangelical on the right wing, right out to high church Anglo-Catholic and the whole range between. But the Church of Ireland was mostly somewhere in the middle. But in the north of Ireland were a lot of very fundamentalist kind of people too. But students of all those ilks, as it were present. And I saw it, quite frankly, as my job to provoke these people to think. And most of them didn't like it. They wanted answers all the time. And not only did they want simple answers, but they wanted to tell me exactly the way it was and the way things were. And in lectures, when I was lecturing, some of these fellows were down the back flicking through Bibles to look for texts to confound what I was telling them or saying to them or forcing them to question, you see. So anyway, I did enjoy it nonetheless, but at the end of about 5 or 6 years, I went back to a parish in West Wicklow, Dunard and Dunlavin in West Wicklow, because I missed the contact with families. That was what really, and this business of creating community around the liturgy of the church. And so that was, I was back there, and after about 8 years there, I had enough of that parish, because I always found that once you'd gone through things for the routine of the church's here and so on for 8 years, you got to know, I ran out of ideas and I became stale, and I wanted to move on and start again, as it were, with a new group. So I was appointed to a very small inner city parish in Dublin. It's top of going up O'Connell Street, last turn on the right is Cattlebrewer Street, and immediately on the left there's a little red brick church there, which is the Church of Ireland Church. It's right opposite the catering college, and if you remember back, some of the older members of the group will remember it's where the Aer Lingus buses used to go to the airport. Just there. And that was a little dying parish. There were no more than about 50 parishioners, and none of them that I think none of them was under 50. But they were a terrific bunch of people who were determined to hang on. And the good thing about that parish was not particularly the actual parochial end, but with it went the chaplaincies to the Mater Public and Private, Temple Street Children's Hospital, and Mountjoy Prison. And of course, it was the chaplaincies that really attracted me to the parish, and I enjoyed that. After about 2.5 years, purely through stress, I became ill, and I was advised to retire, and I did retire. I was able to retire. And when I retired, I'm fine again, all of that passed. When I retired, it gave me opportunity to read, to catch up with reading I had not had time to do in the busy life of the ministry. And I read voraciously for 3 or 4 years. When I retired, I would have referred to myself as an agnostic, a Christian agnostic, which is a perfectly respectable position, because, as I used to tell the students, and they didn't like this either, that if you don't have doubt, you don't have faith. You have certainty, or you have something else. But Jesus on the cross doubted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Doubt is the corollary of faith, and if you don't have it, you know, you're in some kind of a problem. But the fundamentalist evangelical students didn't quite like that, you see. But I was an agnostic at that point. And then after I retired, and as I say, I read a lot, and after about 3 or 4 years, I had absolutely no doubt that I was an atheist. I did not believe there was a God, or I believed there was no God, whichever way you want to put it. Now, when I had been in the country parish to which I referred in West Wicklow, as part of this recurring scepticism that arose for me, I came in one day, and I'd been out visiting and talking to somebody, and I came in and I said to him, I'm going to have to talk to somebody. I don't think I should be in this job at all. I'll have to tell somebody where I'm at. So I phoned up my bishop, who's the Archbishop of Dublin, Donald Kerr, and I said, I'd like an appointment to come see you. So he gave me an appointment a couple of weeks ahead. I went to see him. I told him exactly what I didn't and didn't believe. Which, the didn't bit was, you know, fundamental Christian doctrines like the resurrection, the incarnation, the divinity of Christ, all of those fundamentals I had very serious. So I talked to him, and we had a wonderful discussion. He was a very interesting man. He wasn't, I mean, I can think of other bishops who would have fainted at the thought that they had one of the clergy who believed these things, or didn't believe them. But he was a terrific man. He was a philosopher and a theologian, and we talked for about an hour. And then the end of the conversation came, we were leaving, and I said, well, how do I stand? How am I fixed? And I can't remember, and it kills me really, but he said something to the effect, get back to work. So I felt that I had done my duty, that I had done all I could do, and I have no doubt that what he felt was something of what I felt. This is something that will pass, that this is quite a normal thing to happen to people, you see. Then, as I say, after I had retired, that I finally decided that I was actually atheist. And by the way, people sometimes say, you know, talking to me about when you lost the faith. I didn't lose the faith. I mean, that sounds like culpable negligence, really, I lost the faith, you know, or carelessness of some kind. I think it's an appalling expression, so lost the faith. I didn't lose the faith. I, as it were, rejected the faith. I positively said, I do not believe it. It wasn't a casual thing by which I kind of moved out. Now,